I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the agenda for the Conservation Commission Inland Wetlands Watercourse Agency for Tuesday, March 21st. Good evening, everyone. The first item is the roll call, and I believe we have a full commission here. We will go on to the second item. New applications for receipt and determination of significance. Application CC 23-11 of Red Door Homes LLC, owner for wetland permit to allow site grading and clearing of a 15,000 square foot site on the upland review area associated with the construction of a single-family house at 54 West Mountain Road, Assessor's Map B11, Block 406, Lot 015B, Simsbury.
Sorry about that, Madam Chair. I thought I had that ready. So you've got an application for activity grading in the upland review area related to the construction of a single-family house at 54 West Mountain. The applicant has submitted a plat indicating the location of the existing wetland as mapped and flagged. There's a soils report associated with this application. What I've marked for you in blue here is your 100-foot upland review area. So 100 feet from the water course to the upland review area. So it's about 15,000 square feet of grading associated with the construction of the wetland. This is a common type of application, although we know that the sensitive areas along West Mountain Road and have the topography and those kind of things. By and large, it meets your typical threshold for a non-significant activity. We would recommend you schedule it for action on your April 4th regular meeting.
Do you have any questions from the commissioners? All right, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll motion that we find the application is non-significant, place it on our agenda for our next meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? Thank you. All right, we'll move to item 3, public hearing and/or actions on applications. The first one is application CC 2305 of Sean Burkowski, owner for wetland permit to allow site grading and deposition of 30 tons plus or minus stone in the upland review area associated with 250 square feet plus or minus shed installation at 8 Heritage Lane, Assessor's Map G09, Block 203, Lot 014.
Yeah, Madam Chair. Oh, goodness gracious. That's much better, of course. So everybody knows who I am. George McGregor. I'm the planning director. I would apologize in advance. The applicant on this particular application is not here this evening. He had a family emergency and was unable to attend. But if I recall, when you received the application, he did make some comments on this application. So this is a request for a permit within the upland review area at 8 Heritage Lane. The applicant is proposing to regrade and install a shed, as well as part of that installation, deposit approximately 30 tons of stone and regrade in the area of the shed. So this is, you can kind of see the limits of the wetland, the boundary here. And we approximate about 70, the beginning of the area of the grading for the shed is about 75 feet from the wetland area. We recommend approval of this. I did check. You probably asked the question. I know Mr. Levy asked the question about the type of stone, but I did double check with our town engineer about, it's hard to kind of get a frame of reference on what 30 tons is. His suggestion was, yeah, that sounds about right when he converted it to yards, cubic yards. He said that's probably what they need to bring in. The only addition to this is in our recommendation, the applicant didn't include specific location for silt fencing. So as part of our recommended condition, we'd like to attach this map to show this location where silt fencing would need to be established prior to the project going forward.
Would there also be recommendations to remove the silt fencing after the construction?
Yeah, that is included in your standard conditions in the draft motion, yes.
All right. Do you have any questions from the commissioners?
About how many cubic yards was that? When you
30. I haven't done the math.
Okay,
So 30 tons, the cubic,
no problem.
I wasn't ready for that question.
Okay.
Political science major, town planner.
Rocks are heavy.
Somebody probably could do it on their phone right now and convert it. I mean, it's a significant amount, is the
Yeah.
answer.
Yeah, Any other questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Yeah,
Which we
I'll put forward the motion. I move that the Inland Wetlands Agency approves application CC 2305 of Sean Bierkowski, owner and applicant, for a wetlands permit to allow site grading of approximately 30 tons of stone fill associated with the installation of a 240 square foot shed in the upland review area of 8 Heritage Lane, map G09, lot 203, lot 014, based upon the following findings. A, the project will not adversely impact the wetlands, and the short-term impacts from the proposed development will be controlled by installation, maintenance of erosion and sediment controls, and construction runoff controls, and is subject to all the usual conditions.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, good, thank you very much. All right, we're on to the next item, which is application CC 2309 for BDC Home Improvement Services LLC, owner for a wetlands permit to allow the site grading, paving, and construction of a 2,742 square foot on the site of the upland review area associated with the construction of a 2,607 square foot house at 54 Great Pond Road, Assessor's Map F08, Block 110, Lot 127, Simsbury, Connecticut.
Madam Chair, I'm going to defer to Terry Hahn. She is here on behalf of the applicant.
Good evening. Again, it's Terry Hahn, Principal and Landscape Architect from LADA PC Land Planners. We're representing the applicant. The site is located on Great Pond Road. It is adjacent to 50 Great Pond and across the street from 55 Great Pond. It is part of, to the rear is open space from a 1980 open space subdivision. It is zoned R40 OS. And is an existing lot. It's part of a series of 3 lots that came out of that subdivision. The land itself is relatively flat, kind of goes up towards the middle and then goes back towards the wetlands. There's a large spruce tree in the northeast-ish corner, center. And then you can see there's an existing woods edge with an existing earth berm that then goes down to the wooded wetlands in the back on the town property. On that property, there is a small stream corridor that's associated with that. This is looking back, so you can sort of see from back where the spruce tree is back to the road. Again, it's part of a 1970 subdivision that left 3 lots in basically an existing open field, and that these lots are now available for sale, and I think you'll start to see them being developed. This will be the first of all 3 of them are for sale. Here we go. It's an existing 30,000 square foot lot. The wetlands were flagged, and you can see the wetland itself. Do I have a cursor? No. That's located up at the top of the area with the 100-foot upland review area coming into approximately about half the site. We were able to locate the building, except for a small corner of the garage, a portion of the driveway, and a portion of the deck out of the upland review area. This has water and sewer on Great Pond, so there's no septic system here. So we're able to better control the grading. The existing spruce will come down because it just, at this point, it's we know that that'll be the open backyard, but there's no reason to disturb any further into the woods and that leave that earthen berm where it is. It's a relatively small, typical house with a 2-car garage that's being proposed. Here you see the overall area of disturbance plus the spruce tree being removed. That would be the 2,742 square feet which includes grading, a little portion of the driveway, a little portion of the garage, and a little portion of the deck. Here. It's pretty much the whole application.
Are there any invasives on that site?
There are invasives along the wood's edge, right where the sun hits the woods. It's mostly bittersweet
Yeah.
at the moment, so.
Did they consider treating them, taking them out?
At the moment, I mean, my thought was kind of limiting what we were doing over in that area, but we can certainly eliminate it's right on the edge. Once you get into the woods,
Yeah.
into the wetlands, it doesn't intrude. It's right where the sun is.
Yeah, but they spread.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it would be lovely if, while they were doing that removal of the spruce tree, if they could take those out as well.
Sure.
Does anyone have any other?
The area that's in green, I guess, there, that's being disturbed, what are you doing with the grade? Are you sloping it, making it flat?
Yeah, so
Up, down?
the house is specifically set up right out the saddle of the site itself. If we pulled it any further forward, we actually would be disturbing more because it'll be located lower and we end up disturbing a lot more land. So the idea is just that you're making it relatively flat. The applicant has agreed to take any excess material out of the area rather than try and, sort of regrade the whole backyard.
So right behind the house, it's just gonna be,
Yeah, it's
Pretty
flat.
much
Yes,
just
it's
smooth.
flat and then it goes about 5% backwards, towards the berm and the wood's edge.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion?
I move that the Inland Wetlands Agency approves the application number CC 2309 of BDC Home Improvement LLC and LADAPC to construct a plus or minus 9 square foot portion of a plus or minus 2,607 square foot single family home and associated improvements in the upland review area at 54 Great Pond Road. Based on the findings that the project will not adversely impact the wetlands and that the short-term impact for the proposed development will be controlled by installation and maintenance of erosion and sediment controls and construction runoff controls, subject to the following conditions in the stipulated.
And with the encouragement to remove the invasives at the,
Yep, sorry.
yeah.
No, I'll second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so we're on to application CC number 2229 of Vessel R.E. Holdings, LLC, applicant EAY Properties, LLC, owner for a wetland permit to allow grading and construction of site improvements, including parking lot, landscaping, retaining wall, and guardrail in the upland review area associated with 80-unit multifamily development at 446 Hop Meadow Street, Assessors Map G13, Block 142, Lot 003C, Simsbury. And this is a continuation of our public hearing. Tonight, I'd like to start with any public comment. So if anyone has a public comment, we do have 2 microphones. I encourage you to come up. And please identify yourself for the record.
Good evening. My name is Pat Weisbrick, and I live at 3 Lenore Drive. Didn't expect this to happen so fast. Protecting the rights of the land of this beautiful town of Simsbury, that Simsbury's been gifted with, is a big responsibility. So I want to begin by saying thanks to all of you who have served on this committee, current members and past members, for your stewardship of Simsbury's land. That's been very important. I will try to be brief. My husband doesn't think I am, but I will try. Number one, I doubt that many residents here will disagree for the need for affordable housing. However, I believe that those of us who are present tonight to speak against this development speak for the majority of Simsbury residents. We object to the placement of this monstrosity at 446 Hot Meadow Street for many reasons. Vessel Development is an out-of-state developer, in it for an easy subsidized profit in the shelter of 830G, which has taken the ability to govern out of the hands of Simsbury residents and turned it over to the state. I believe this project would have been DOA, as in dead on arrival, without said subsidies. In light of other commercial properties that are potentially available in Simsbury, I would consider this to be predatory development, taking a small lot in an R15 single-family zone location. So number 3, Vessel's plan on many levels is a fairy tale. Fairy tale number 1 is wetlands. Claims are made that this development will not impact the wetlands. I live on Lenora Drive and have seen the changes in the wetlands as a result of the development on Joshua Drive. We've been there for 39 years. Backyards to 2 houses in the neighborhood have been lost to expanding wetlands. The yards are now either marsh or swamp. I'm not sure if there's any difference between the two, but maybe you guys know. The clear cutting of my backyard by Eversource for the power easement has significantly changed our water table. With a good rain, stormwater now pools in the backyard, and the absence of trees has greatly and negatively impacted the grass that will grow in that space where it once flourished. Okay, fairy tale number 2, landscape plan. Following the removal of a significant number of trees, Vessel's landscape architect has created a beautification plan that looks great on paper. However, the plan will never replace the trees that have been cut. The water table will change, the bank will erode, and the wetlands will be affected. Eversource created a plan for me when they clear-cut the yard. Even after receding 3 years in a row, they've been unable to even grow grass. We've got weeds now. I suspect this development will end up the same way. Fairy tale number 3, snow removal plan. Vessel is not living in Simsbury's real world of snow removal. Based on their plan, they will not only be unable to adequately remove the snow, but this pre-storm spreading of ice melt combined with petroleum effluents, engine oil, brake fluid, antifreeze, that when it will inevitably be on top of the asphalt, will drain into the wetlands, thereby polluting our wetlands. I have a photo that was taken 6 mild days after the last snowstorm of a snow pile from a 53 space parking lot. It's in front of Bed Bath & Beyond down on Bushy Hill Road. I can give you a picture if you want it. It's over 8 feet high, and the extent of the snow pile must be at least 100 feet. That was 6 days of warm weather. Fairy tale number 4, Vessel's lighting plan. Though Vessel's plan is to have lighting that focuses the beam downward, light will be seen. Light from parking lots, building lights, light from the apartment windows, vehicular traffic. So it will be significant. Lighting has been known to disrupt ecosystems, which will happen in the adjacent wetland. It also disrupts human sleep and obscures the stars in the sky at night. Fairy tale number 5, Vessel's noise reduction plan. The incessant noise generated by HVAC systems will be detrimental to the adjacent wetland as well as to contiguous properties. According to the National Park Service, noise pollution has an enormous environmental impact and does serious damage to wildlife. It can interfere with breeding cycles and rearing of young. It has been said it has even hastened extinction of some species. Fairy tale number 6, Vessel's cubic design will be a great place to live. This project will sandwich people into apartments with natural light from only one side. The kitchen, where a significant time is spent, is shown to be on the farthermost interior wall. It will need artificial lighting at all times. There is a significant detrimental effect on one's mental health in the absence of natural light, as written in NASA reports. Would any of you want to live there? And fairy tale number 7, and this is the last one, the building will be carbon neutral. Vessels and contracted experts provided no information regarding the capacity for power generation from the photovoltaic solar panels, yet Vessel proclaimed the building to be carbon neutral. That remains to be seen. Needed evaluations, the total solar panel space and number of kilowatt capacity and all that kind of stuff. And there has been no presentation regarding power of the buildings by conventionally generated electricity on the days and weeks that New England's sun is obscured by clouds, rain, sleet, snow, or panels are degraded by degree in normal operations. So, commissioners, we do need affordable housing, but we can do and must do much better than this. If this project is allowed, the water table, second brook, and the flora and fauna of the wetland will be irreversibly changed, and through the years, promises of design perfection made today by Vessel will be broken, and Simsbury will be stuck with an eyesore of a bright, noisy, ill-maintained building and grounds, polluting adjacent properties. Please vote this down.
All right, thank you. Is Amy Ellen here tonight? She wanted to testify early. No, okay.
Amy Allen? Okay, Madam Chair, continue.
Thank you. All right, anyone else is interested in testifying tonight? Sure. All right, you might want to line up. Yes?
Good evening. My name is Catherine Godikson. I live in 7 Nutmeg Court in Hazel Meadow. I'm going to repeat some of what was just said, but I'm going to talk primarily about pollution. And I'm taking the role of a person with a proposal. So, how about this scenario? You know that 2-acre parcel that's been a watershed for millennia, gently filtering the water entering the brook? Well, it's going to be covered with bituminous concrete to make a big parking lot that covers most of the land. That material is really toxic to aquatic life, but oh well, what are you going to do? Before that's done, the property will need to be clear-cut and all the topsoil removed. Maybe it can be sold to make a little more money. All of the vast life under this soil, like beneficial bacteria, fungi, earthworms, etc., will be destroyed by digging it up, moving it around, and crushing it to make it flat. Oh well, what are you going to do? Next, a huge prefab apartment building will be erected, which is composed entirely of synthetic material, meaning it's made with chemicals. Uncertain if those will leach out, I don't know. It's also touted to be completely electrical. Boy, not sure about the levels of the electromagnetic field radiating off the building and from all the EV plugs that run along the bank of the brook. Well, it's invisible, so I guess we can pretend it doesn't exist. Oh well, what are you going to do? By the way, there will be plenty of light pollution to go around because the entire parking lot and the building will be lit up all night. Maybe eye shades can be handed out to the mammals, but it would be hard to put one on a fish. We'll just ask them to close their eyes. Oh wait, they don't have eyelids. So I guess they'll just stay awake all night. Unfortunately, artificial light has quite a negative effect on humans, wildlife, and ecosystems, but oh well, what are you going to do? Noise pollution comes next. Sorry to say that the development will be packed with people and vehicles, which are all noise producers, along with machines that power much of the electrical needs all day and night. Noise pollution seriously impacts the health and well-being of wildlife as well as humans. Oh well, what are you going to do? It must be said that one of our most precious elements, oxygen we breathe, will be polluted by vehicular exhaust. We all know it's quite toxic, and will be abundantly produced by a 94 capacity parking lot every day and night. And let's not forget all the delivery vehicles that will be arriving frequently, which somehow the traffic expert that they have never mentions. The list of toxins from exhaust is dwarfed by what tires shed constantly and is called tire crumb. Admittedly, they can become airborne and float into the brook or to the nearby neighbors. Oh well, what are you going to do? So let me see. We have a list of issues that include soil degradation, synthetic materials, electromagnetic fields, light pollution, noise pollution, and air pollution. What am I missing? Oh yeah, water. Water is the key element that draws wildlife to the brook. They can't live without it for drinking and as habitat. Sadly, it's hard to deny that vehicular exhaust pollutes water as well as air. Hydrocarbons cause cancer, and nitrous oxide is a key component of acid rain. And let's not forget that toxic tire crumb and throw in benzene and formaldehyde. Oh well, what are you going to do? So, what are you going to do? You are responsible for upholding the wetlands regulations and applying them, nothing else. How can you possibly interpret this ecological degradation in any other way? Please do not take the toxic pill that the developer and their so-called experts are trying to hand you. Look only to the reality of this development's negative impact on this environment. Why were wetlands regulations created if not to apply them when warranted? Please do the right thing for the environment and the wildlife. They have no say. You must speak for them. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The next person who would like to speak? And if we can keep them a little bit short for.
Hello, my name is Jonah Leeper. I spoke last time. I'll keep it brief, but the developers or the representatives from Vessel have said that they have plans to handle all of the pollution and different light pollution, noise pollution that will come from this. But I think if you use your common sense, you can really see that there's no way that all this light coming out of this building and the runoff and the thermal pollution and all that will not have any negative impact on the wetland. I think it would seriously damage the habitat there. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have additional comments?
My name is Ann McDonald. I live at 3 Tamarack. I spoke last night, so some of you may kind of hear the same story over again, but as far as the drainage is planned, I want to make sure, if this does go forward, that their numbers are correct in all the equations so that a proper system can be built if you cannot say no to this for some, if it has to go forward. So I found in my, kind of my research, because I was like, oh, this is so many square feet. How do they come up with all this square feet? So in the end, I realized that they're using the 2 lots that they're buying as one in all their measurements. And you can find that on their page 3 of their technical management report. Okay, so they're using the square footage from both the front lot, which is 1.97 acres, and also the riverfront lot, which is 2.39 acres. And both will total 4.67 acres. The 4.67 acres, if you multiply that by the square footage per acre, which is 43,560, you come up with 203,612 square feet. And that is what they have come up with using in their revised report on the 24th of February. So you see, they're figuring out their total work area. I'm reading off their form. This is their words. So the vacant lot has its own ecological diversity with its own natural drainage system in the form of soil, tree roots, moss, dead leaves, and branches, etc. This is a lot separated from 446 Hot Meadow Street by a 60-foot wide state-owned railway bed. It's a separate lot. as if I've owned a house on this side and I want to buy a house over there on the other side of a sidewalk. It's the same. They are two separate entities. They should not be included together in the measurements to evaluate and determine what size drainage system we need to have for a stormwater management system. The town assessor's property documents show these two parcels as two separate entities with separate addresses and taxed separately. One being at 446 Hot Meadow Street at 1.95 acres on the paperwork from the town, and one being Winslow Place at 2.39 acres. Though they are purchasing both lots, they are still separate and they are only building on one location, which is the 446 Hot Meadow Street at 1.95 acres. Vessel's building plan states this lot is at 1.97 acres, so that's kind of what I'm going to use from now on for all my equations for rainwater and stuff as that. They should only be using the lot in which they plan to build on for their drainage rate equations, this being the 1.97 acre lot at 446 Hot Meadow Street. The engineer should not be allowed to water down his figures using the riverfront lot, since this lot is separate and will not be developed at this time. And you have to understand, if they decide to develop that lot, well, that would be different equations, right? You can't include the lot that's already developed in the equation for the new lot. They wouldn't want to do that, because then that would be, in reverse. So using the chart, I have this little chart of what they've come up with. So when they're figuring the two lots together, they figure the gravel roads are 684 square feet, the pasture and grasslands, which is all from the spare lot, at 108,124 square feet. The paved parking lot, which they had proposed in their plan, they say it's 11,948 square feet. But when I figured a rough estimate of the parking lot using their plans, not that one, sorry. So many papers, so little time. I don't know if you can, I just rough edged it, and I did two red rectangles measured off. I also eliminated a lot of the pavement so that I figure we'll trade and give and trade kind of, because I'm not really good at geometry, but I could probably figure out the square foot for two rectangles, right? So I actually didn't include the driveway going in, I didn't include the sidewalks, I didn't include the wheelchair ramp and such. I didn't include the sidewalk going around the building, but I'm roughly getting a larger area of impervious material or impervious surface for a parking lot than 12,000 square feet. And they they state that their roof is only going to be 4,938 square feet. Oh, that's maybe a pretty small building if I think about it. And that's going to be impervious area, which will just shed water. So looking down below, the paved parking lot they had planned was 12,000 square feet. The roof they had planned was 5,000 square feet, but we know these aren't correct. So they figured their whole thing was, they figured their impervious area using both lots in their equation was only going to be 16,800 square feet. And they said the pervious area, which is the part that kind of drains pretty well, would be 186,726 square feet. So really, your ratios for drainage are going to be different if you only use the one lot and not both lots. So now we'll go to the lot that we should be building on. So if we only use the lot measurements for 446 Hot Meadow Street and figure that flat surface for the roof and the flat surface for the parking lot, and these will be impervious areas, these surfaces will be collecting rainwater, snow, any other runoff, and head straight to the drains. The equations will be entirely different if you have a different outcome as to the need of an appropriate size stormwater management system. So your system that you're going to need for this amount of impervious area will change by not using that rear lot. So at 1.97 acres, multiplied by the square foot of an acre, which is 43,560. You'll get 85,813 total square feet for the lot that they will be building on. So the building alone is 152 square feet, 152, oh, I didn't do that right, linear feet by 92 linear feet, which you would get just above 14,000 square foot roof. So I'm saying that this roof is gonna produce a lot of runoff, a lot more runoff in the percentages than they originally figured. First, they said it was gonna be 5,000 square feet. That's a pretty small roof. And that's their paperwork on a revised edition of a February 24th of their technical report. I just want to make sure if we end up going on with this building, the stormwater management system must hold the quantity of water from a 14,000 square foot roof. And the parking lot I have estimated to be, just my rough estimates, and it could be different because I'm not really good at geometry, it could be upwards of over 38,000 square feet. So, sorry if I'm going on, but it doesn't seem like other people are going to talk, so I'm going to keep going. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. So, this is the number for the impervious area, the roof and the parking lot. And I'm not counting, so I'm actually in their slight favor because I'm not counting the area under the dumpster or the area at the exit where the bike path is, and possibly some of the entrance and exits at the front of the Hot Meadow Street. So you'll have 52,264 square feet that should be used for the calculations to come up for your stormwater management system. This should reflect the true drainage and an adequate stormwater management system needed for this parcel of land developed. You cannot add the back parcel in your equation. It's draining just fine by itself. So your impervious area percent, I'm sorry, I skipped. And also, did I read correctly in the town websites, as I did a little research, that usually any improvements made on a parcel of land cannot exceed 50% of the total pervious area that you plan. Like, it can't be more than 50, you can't develop more than 50% of the lot, basically, right? Or something. I don't know if I'm perfect, but something in that line. Most towns, after you can't develop more than 50% of the property, but they're going to be developed, I figure, like 60% or more, really. So if you take 52,264 square feet of your impervious area, and you divide that by the total square footage of the 1.97 acres, and then you multiply that by 100, you get 60%. So we want to make sure our drainage system can handle draining 60% of that lot into these cisterns that they have. Have they changed their numbers since you guys are looking at me like, no, we all know all that, right? Have they changed their numbers? Because my February 24th printout, and I went through there 3 days ago on Sunday on my day off, or 2 days ago, and tried to find were there any updates or any changes. There's none that I can find, but man, no, there's a lot of stuff, so I might have missed it. So, so let's talk about rain and how much rain we're going to have. So I have 52,264 square feet of impervious area. That's the roof and the parking lot, and it rains 2 inches. I'm gonna end up with 104,528, which I multiply by 0.623, which is the quantity of water in gallons in a square foot of water at 1 inch deep. I'm going to come up with 65,120 gallons of water that will be running off in 2 inches of rain. That's a lot of water. If we go by what they say that they've planned their stormwater drains to accept 3.32 inches of rain, which is somehow a 2-year rain occurring event. Okay, I'm not a weather person, I don't really get it all, but I can do the math a little bit. So 52,264 square feet of impervious area multiplied by 3.32 inches of rain equals 173,516, and you multiply that by the 1 inch of water in 1 square foot, which is 0.623, and I come up with 108,000 gallons of water. Okay, and then I did the equation for 4 inches of rain, and that comes up at 130,000 gallons of water. Now, for visual, I give you a visual. For a visual, to understand the amount that this water is, if you want to call for your pool to be filled up, one of those big water tanker truck comes, and it holds 5,000 gallons. Okay, now then, 2 inches of rain, which is 2 inches of rain, you would end up with 13 of those trucks filled with water. With 3.32 inches of rain, you would end up with 21 trucks. And with 4 inches of rain, you would end up with 26 tanker trucks full, each holding 5,000 gallons of water. So for that last figure above, at the 4 inches of rain, imagine 26 tanker trucks outside on Hot Meadow Street waiting to pull in one at a time each hour to empty their trucks into the ground in their cistern area. So my question is, can their stormwater management system hold this amount of water in a short period of time during weather such as a nor'easter, like with a significant amount of rain, or something like a Hurricane Sandy? Okay, so can I go on?
Can you submit all this?
Yes, I will. I brought an extra copy. Thank you for asking. I'd love to share. So with the help of my local weatherman, because when I'm searching the internet to try to find recent rainfalls and how much we really get in rainfalls in how many years, you know how much you get. You Google something, you get like 5,000 replies. So with my help of my local weatherman, I emailed him, we shared some news, and then since April of 2005, we have experienced 14 Farmington River crests, flood stage of 12 feet or more. Over half of these can be attributed to heavy rainfall. And when the river floods, so does our wetlands and Second Brook. Actually, what happens in our Second Brook, you get a backflow. So once the river rises and it comes to the top of the drainage tube, which Second Brook runs out of, then it creates a backflow. And the area that's on the east side of the bike path will fill up first. And then when that fills up, it creates a backflow into the area that is in between Hot Meadow Street and the bike path. So, and it can take a while to empty out too. Once the river drops below, then it starts to empty out. But what I'm trying to say is we don't need any more water in that area. And if we have standing water that sits and there's an ecological system going on, it can't be disturbed by any runoff that's an overflow, excess overflow that is not leached into that drainage system. And it just starts pouring out at these large quantities. And it's the salt from the snow, it's the oils, the whatever she mentioned, the brake fluid, everything else that comes from a car.
So
I'm almost done.
Okay.
Do you want to say something though?
No, I was just going to say, if we could.
Yes, okay. I just have another
Finish it up.
paragraph. Okay. So since 2005, we have also experienced 8 storms which show a single one-day rainfall from 3.79 inches to 5.72 inches. And basically 5.72 inches is about 186,000 gallons of water. So in their geological report, they state that the soil on this particular site at 446 Hot Meadow Street can be expected to exhibit poor long-term drainage characteristics. If the underlying soil is always wet, how can it absorb and filter as it should? If you pour water onto a paper towel, it can only hold so much before the water pours off. And can this, because of the soil underneath is so saturated, is it going to undermine our bank
And as the water is rushing out of that pipe, is it going to wash the bank away? And then all that sediment will end up settling in the pipe between and underneath the bike path and such. So my question is, how much can this system actually hold as it is leaching out before it actually discharges laden with parking lot chemicals, oils, etc., causing a catastrophic damage to our wetlands and its diverse habitat? Any significant rainfall in a short period of time or a rainfall over many days will not be able to be stored and leached out slowly as per this system should be doing.
Okay, so if you could give that to, I mean, the applicants will have these
All right.
questions to answer.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's calling out. Okay, listen.
No, noise. I'm abnormally short. My name is Kelly Rothfuss. I'm 14 Nutmeg Court. I just had a couple of points to address. I attended the zoning meeting last night and heard different proposals from Vessel. One major concern is the snow. Keep hearing about the snow, the snow, the snow. At the zoning meeting last night, they did a calculation where 6 parking lots, and please excuse me if I get it wrong, and there was 3 different areas where they're gonna put the snow, and they calculated that in the 90 plus parking lot with a 3 or 4 inch snow, there's only going to be piles of 44 inches high. It doesn't make any sense. And as kind of what my neighbor pointed out, the math does not math. It just is not correct. And so wondering if their calculations are based on with the cars in the parking lot or without. How do you remove snow when you've got 90 cars in a parking lot? The other concern, one of the areas where they were going to make the 44-inch pile of snow, which I have never met you, thank you. She spoke so eloquently about the 53-space parking lot at Bed Bath & Beyond is essentially a Mount Everest of snow. That's what it will be. One of those areas happens to be right on the corner of the wetland. So all of this snow, one of the locations will be on the wetland. There will be pollution. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. It will be polluted. My second concern is the water, and we hear a lot about it. We have been experiencing La Nina for 3 years, which is unprecedented. So we have not had as much rain or wet as we normally have. So my concern is, are the measurements of the wetland and the soil surrounding really true measurements, because we really haven't had a certain level of moisture in a particular amount of time. And can this area still absorb the water that Anne had pointed out with all of her math and things of that nature? It's just a huge concern, because I am that person where the water will go into my house. So this is of the concern. The third part is Vessel likes to speak in absolutes. There will be no light spillage. There will be no garbage from the dumpsters going into the wetland. Only Siths deal in absolutes. There is no guarantee. It will be polluted. There will be light spillage. It cannot be contained. So I want you to please take in consideration and use, please, your common sense. The wetlands will be destroyed if this complex is created. Thank you.
Hi, Susan Messino, 41 Madison Lane. So I wanted to make a couple of comments. I want to second what the person who I don't know talked about, the health effects of light pollution and noise pollution and all of these things. That's absolutely true. And really, anything that's damaging our ecological lifelines is damaging to our health. And I think that's the problem with this public policy, is it doesn't take into account that critical health issue for everyone. So anything that allows us to damage our wetlands or our brooks or our wild and scenic river or our neighbors is not a good policy. And a good policy would have found a way to repurpose the Hartford instead of blowing up those buildings and building on the farmland next door. A good policy would have converted the hotel or motel, on 10 into affordable housing instead of luxury apartments. And I think we really need to figure out how to not let this clause, which everyone knows was written by and for developers, run over our towns because it's a bad policy. Thank you.
Hi, Susan Van Cleve, 6 Mallard Circle in Terriffill. So I do live quite far from this project, but I've been coming to a lot of meetings and I just want to support neighbors who I barely even know. I went down there today. It was a beautiful day, and I'd been to Nutmeg Cork one day. I could look up at Nutmeg Cork and see what they would see. And today I went on the trail. It's a few-minute walk, and I hope you're not deciding on this tonight, because if you haven't been there and you haven't walked, it would be a travesty for you to make any decision about this if you have not walked down to the bike trail and looked up. And having been to so many meetings, I can imagine this building. I don't know how good my imagination is. And, there's a woods there now. There's a stream, and yes, it's dry. It's not alive like it is in the picture. But the river, the Farmington River, there's so many streams. I walked all the way into town, and there's so many streams that come down, and we have so much impervious surface now. We really need to start thinking about that. It's not just one stream, it's what we've done upstream, and we have great facilities up there that most of us love, and restaurants and Ensign Bickford. But this is just one more effect that's gonna be on our Farmington River, and those people that live across the way. When you talk about health, to have to be going outside at night, or to have it shining in your windows, or to hear that noise, that's a health effect. It's stress. It adds stress to your life. I'm going to be able to sell my condo for what it's worth now. And I just really hope that you take this really seriously, because the whole project, having these developers come in and assume that they could just come in and build something this large and this irresponsible in our town, we can't let that happen. We just can't let that happen anymore. And we do need affordable housing, and we can do it better. We can do it much better for the people who live in the affordable housing and for the people in the neighborhoods around it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ellen Gilbert. I live at 126 Hot Meadow Street. I'm going to add on one thing that I wasn't planning on saying, but I agree totally with the affordable housing, and I am not a person that says not in my backyard. My backyard is the Hartford Insurance Company that has been abandoned, and parts of it have even, I think, been torn down. And that would have been a better place. And there is so much land there that is not being used. So I would say bring it to my neighborhood where the Hartford Insurance Company was, because that could be a better place. Or maybe, I agree, like down in the center of Simsbury where those apartments were, or at the end of Iron Horse Boulevard where they took down 3 houses many, many years ago. So aside from that, my other issue is, I had asked the other time about the safety of the calcium chloride. And I looked up in the Minnesota Stormwater Manual, and it says that calcium chloride is exothermic with water. So you mix it with water and it creates heat. Somebody on the board last time mentioned about the heat affecting the life in the ground there. And in fact, it would create hotter water. It's corrosive. It's not safe for cats and dogs. It defoliates trees and plants. And quote, it's toxic to many species of aquatic wildlife, including fish, amphibians, and invertebrates. We're talking about multiple applications of this calcium chloride in the wintertime. We have snowstorm after snowstorm sometimes, and that one excellent description of water and how much water would affect the drainage system that is proposed. I have serious concerns about that calcium chloride not being able to be handled by their system and by it going down into that wetlands area. And you're talking about something that's not in my backyard, but it is all of our backyards. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey there, I'm Josh Weiss, 4 Oakwood Road. I haven't had a good chance to review everything, but I'm fair to come up here and say a few things. I saw that the site has a floodplain nearby. I don't know if that was included in the delineation, but floodplain soils, alluvial soils, Connecticut state resource by definition. Should kind of be reviewed. And I also saw that there's an NDDB hit right at the mouth of the second brook at the Farmington River. I have faith in the permitting process and that, through thorough review, everything will flush out in the end. But I wanted to make sure, stormwater going into a brook that usually requires, Army Corps permits, and especially, next to the Farmington River there, that the process was going through the state permitting process, and all the boxes are being checked. It's good. It's great to have a delineation done. Delineations just look for the poorly drained hydric soils, but a good delineator will also find those state-only resources, and those are just as important as the federally, determined ones with the 3-parameter rule. So, all my neighbors are here and people I see in town, and they all ask me to come out and say a few things, and I hate doing this. Usually I'm doing like an expert testimony, and I hate doing it. But, just like I said, I have faith in the permitting process, and, that's something that we should be doing. Our resources are very easy to mess up and very hard to replace. So, I bet that those are mussels at the mouth of the brook there. And any of the stormwater, it's gonna kill them all. That's just what happens. Like everybody else has said, pollutants, contaminants from stormwater, especially the salts and stuff they put in the winter, not good stuff. So, and then I thought I saw on the plan sheets there, retaining wall. Those are good and all, but they kind of get rid of all that terrestrial habitat that borders wetlands. Especially for all the invertebrates and microinvertebrates and what have you. I don't know if there's any vernal pools out there. Now's the time to be looking. The Farmington River is a pretty major watercourse in the state. I'm not sure if this section is that, I'm not sure if this is the national scenic part of it. I know there is designation on the Farmington River. And again, floodplain soils are important, wetland soils are important. The fact that they're saying there's poorly drained soils on the site, right there should be a red flag that, you guys are digging in a wetland. So, I think it's worthy of a second or third look. I'm not sure what point in the process you guys are at, so that's it.
Thank you.
My name is Andrew Sylvain. I'm at 6 Riverview Circle. My house is on the Farmington River. One of the main concerns that I have are the immediate neighbors. This is their view from their back porches. And as you can see here, the development's going to be about 20 feet higher. The main, one of the things is going to be all that exhaust. So you got about the 95 parking spots, plus all the e-commerce that's going to go on. So there's going to be vehicles coming and going, engines running almost constantly, and all that exhaust, especially in the winter and the fall months when you're going to have a frost, and that exhaust is just going to settle down and pool down in that area. So the immediate neighbors will be having to deal and smell that exhaust continually, and that cannot be a good health benefit. Just to reiterate, you have that 40-foot wall in the entrance to the building. That's going to emanate light, even though they're going to put about a 3-foot vinyl fence in maybe that'll probably block the headlights. But that wall there is still going to emanate quite a bit of light. So that is definitely going to be a huge problem, especially for the neighbors that are really close to this. And with all those vehicles and people coming and going, trash is going to fall out of the vehicles. It's going to happen. Starbucks and Dunkin' Donut cups and all that's going to collect down here in our wetlands and our property. And so that's definitely going to be another concern there. So everyone else has brought up these soil types. We've shown pictures before, the trees falling down and everything. But what's really going to be huge for me is the exhaust settling in this area. And the neighbors immediate to this development are going to have to be breathing that in. That is definitely a health and wetlands concern, not just the neighbors, but the wildlife in the area. So I would, and also too, a previous speaker had mentioned coming down and take a look at it. One of the board members came down last Sunday and we appreciated it. We definitely like somewhere you to come down, take a look at it with your own eyes. The photos don't do it justice when you see how close this is going to be, especially to the ladies that are going to be living close to this development. So once again, we extend an invitation, come on down, take a look at it with your own eyes, and go from there. Appreciate your time.
Are there any other publics who'd like to comment today? If not, we'll move on to the applicants' responses. Oh, were you thinking of making a? I'm sorry. We have one more public comment. Sorry.
My name is David Parasol. I live at 1 Riverview Circle. A little bit about me. I studied construction management and got a degree in civil engineering as well. I'm only degreed, not stamped. But my career, built schools, office buildings, nice liquid natural gas plant in Waterbury, manufacturing plants for UTC, Raytheon now around the country. The one question I have, a lot of land that we developed, if we came anywhere near the wetlands, we had to reestablish anything we disturbed. Is that going to happen here?
So, well, all right.
So I haven't seen anything, and I think that's kind of critical.
All right. All right, thank you. All right. Last call. All right, so thank you.
rather than go in the order that we had organized for our presentation tonight, because of the rather extensive presentation that Ms. McDonald made, we felt that it would be appropriate for our project engineer to provide you with some information that would be helpful in your analysis of the materials that she presented. So we're gonna do that first, just to get that out of the way, because Mr. Moran has his stormwater management report, and he can put it up on the board so you can see it. Could be embarrassed. Great. Thanks, George.
All right, good evening, Commission. For the record, Seamus Moran, professional engineer in Connecticut, work for H&H Engineering Associates. There was a lot of testimony just about the stormwater. I think there was just a misunderstanding of how it's developed and where it comes from. So I'll just quickly go through that. I won't go through all the numbers with you, but I will show you, I think what was reviewed was the pre-existing, not the post-development conditions. And I'll show you the maps of how that was developed. I'm sorry, I'm gonna take this off. So the maps, it's more than the 1.97 acres, because you have to look at the contributing drainage area that's coming from uphill across your property. So I'll just show you the existing conditions map quickly. It'll explain it a little bit more clearer than I can do verbally. All right, here we go. So what we're looking at here So this is the pre-existing drainage area map. So this darker line that you see follows my cursor. This here is the edge of the wetland to the north. And what's contributing to that edge is essentially, we look at the contours from the high point here. There's a high point here, so some of this goes out into the street. Everything that is from the high point coming across these properties, here's our property here. Anything that comes across our property, so essentially starting from our back corner of our property and our northern property, any stormwater that comes across our property, we have to look at, we have to evaluate, because there is stormwater coming from uphill that comes across our property that we have to do something with, we have to manage. So that's why there's a stormwater management area C, which I can get to if we need to. It's just an infiltration trench to capture that off-site runoff so it doesn't come across our parking lot and add more flow to our stormwater management system. So this is what we're looking at. The parcel that was discussed, that's the opposite side of the trail, that's not in question. That hasn't been included in any of the calculations. It's the contributing drainage area getting to that design point, which is the southern edge of the wetland, just north of our property. So that's what this design point is the southern edge of the wetland. Yep, so the proposed condition. Yeah. Yeah, so here, if you can follow my cursor, this is our property. Following our cursor, that's our property. And what we have to evaluate is what our property is doing to the design point, which is the edge of the wetland. So everything that comes across these southern properties across our property, we have to evaluate that to see how much stormwater is actually getting to that wetland across our property. So then when we look at the proposed condition, this is the proposed map. It's still the same outline. The outline is the exact same. But how those intermediate drainage areas operate in between, that's how we design our stormwater management system. So those numbers that were discussed, so as you can see this plan, you can obviously see our development here outlined by my cursor here. Those upgrading areas are untouched. They don't, obviously we're not doing anything upgrading off our property or downgrading off our property. So we're just looking at the middle, which is our property. And then the numbers that were discussed, I think we're probably just reviewing the pre-existing conditions. So when you look at when you have to evaluate it, you look at what's currently there and what we're proposing to do. So those numbers, those impervious numbers, I believe we're probably just looking at the pre-development conditions, which if you look from here, I think a lot of those numbers that you talked about were the pre-existing numbers, which have paved parking areas. Essentially, it all adds up to how we come up with these numbers. The proposed condition, I think she was concerned that we were only contributing 14,000 square feet or something like that. I'll just show you. So this is the proposed condition. This is just how the drainage areas break out, and then you get down to the areas, and those areas are here. Again, 203,000 square feet, which is broken down with 38,000 square feet of paved parking, plus the roof is 14,063 square feet. So all the numbers are there. I just think there was a misunderstanding and a misread of the stormwater management report. So I just want to clarify that. I don't think we have to go any further on that. I think there was just a misunderstanding of it, but if there are any questions about the stormwater system, I can certainly get into that. Yeah.
Mr. McGregor, can you get us back to the start of our...
The microphone. Oh, I was talking. Okay.
Do a great job.
Get your steps in, George.
All right.
Great. Thank you. Just make sure we start at the beginning. Thank you. To reiterate a few basic facts with respect to this development, we have no wetlands on our site. We are requesting a wetlands permit because a portion of your 100-foot upland review area is located in the area that we propose for the development of parking spaces, an area for the dumpster location, the stormwater discharge point, and again, some of these parking spaces or parts of them fall within the upland review area. That's the only activity that we propose within the upland review area. We are at the nearest point about 53 feet from the edge of the wetland, and we're more than 120 feet from the second brook. And we propose no activity off of our property, and certainly no activity anywhere near or related to the second brook. We had asked that we have the opportunity to respond to any questions or issues that commission members may have. You were kind enough to provide us with a couple of elements of questions. We are going to hear from Seamus again, and we're going to hear from Mr. Sipperly in response to a couple of the matters that were raised in the comments that we received. And I'll work my way through those, and then I'll ask Mr. Moran and Mr. Sipperly to speak to their particular matters. We received a series of questions from the chairman that we're pleased to respond to. Starting with the lighting issue, Chairman suggests that we should use lighting that has a color temperature of no more than 3,000 kelvins. We consulted with our lighting expert. I have the details, specifications. He indicates that 3,000 kelvins is available with respect to the solar lighting that we propose on the site. Commission wants to assure itself that that's what's going to be installed. We certainly have no objection to a condition of approval that specifies that. The next issue that Chairman raised was a question of whether or not it's possible to manage the parking lights from 10 p.m. to dawn by using a dimming mechanism. Again, we consulted with our lighting expert, and you'll find in the specifications a provision that allows those lights to be dimmed. We know there's a program that allows them to be dimmed to 40%. We believe there's a program that allows them to be dimmed to 20%. We do have some concerns about making a parking lot completely dark at any time for safety purposes, but we certainly can confirm tonight that at the very least, parking lot lights could be dimmed to 40% of their brightness for a period of time from 10 p.m. to dawn or some early morning hour. And again, if the commission wants to make that a condition of approval, we have no objection to that. You may notice that the site plan that's up on the screen right now is different than the site plan that we provided at our earlier public hearing session. Principal change is as a result of our engineer working with your town engineer on stormwater management matters. I believe that the two engineers are now in agreement as to the manner in which stormwater management will occur. And one of the changes was that on an earlier plan, if you remember, we had a detention basin on the east side and the west side of the building. The detention basin on the east side has been eliminated. In fact, we've created a little lawn area for some passive recreation for the tenants in this area. You'll see on our landscape plan that we have a gravel path that leads to a smaller lawn area for the tenants' use. And the detention basin that we had on the westerly side of the building is now a rain garden. Chairman suggested that we consider that. Please indicate the planting maintenance plan for the bioretention area. Has the applicant considered the option of planting the bioretention area as a rain garden? The answer is yes. And you'll see on Tom Graceffa's landscape plan that all of the wetland or rain garden plants are called out as New England species, native species. And that's what that area will be planted as. We do have a complete planting plan. Mr. Graceffa is at another hearing tonight and was not able to be with us. So you're going to have to put up with me as a landscape architect, for which I certainly apologize, because I'm not one. There have been a substantial change in the plant list based on the comments received. And I think that I can state with certainty that all of the comments have been adopted, that any species that were called out as not native have been eliminated. The plant list, we've submitted a hard copy of this map or this plan to Mr. McGregor. I apologize for not being able to get it to you sooner, but these were matters that took some time to complete and get finished into a plan that would be available to you. As I indicated, this is the rain garden plant list as prepared by Mr. Graceffa. That's for this area. And then the plant list has changed in accordance with the comments and suggestions received from the chair of this commission. We got two other items that we've added to this presentation. One is our waste hauler, Payne Recycling and Rubbish, has apparently been confronted with the bear problem that exists in Connecticut, and they have developed a bear-resistant dumpster arrangement that humans can open, but apparently bears have a more difficult time with it. The letter from Payne indicates that that dumpster will be available for this site. There was also a question as to whether or not these dumpsters were of adequate size. We consulted with Payne, who obviously has expertise in this area. They indicate that they have sized the dumpsters for this development and believe that they're appropriately sized. The size of the pad and the dumpsters was based on their advice. The second letter that we're submitting today, and Seamus will talk a little bit more about our snow plan, since that seems to be an issue for people. Not sure how it becomes a wetlands issue. We're not putting any snow in any wetland. We're not putting any snow in any upland review area. The snow is being stored on the site away from those areas. The person who commented that one of the snow storage areas is on the corner of a wetland is just not accurate. I know people have trouble reading maps, and you'll see on the plan that that's not correct. Our NL Enterprises has been servicing Simsbury, Granby, and surrounding areas for 38 years. We have considerable experience in plowing and salting before, during, and after snow. They recommend the use of brine, calcium chloride brine specifically, as a pre-treatment, just the way the state of Connecticut does on our highways, since it dramatically reduces the volume of treatment by doing so. They also indicate that on the rare occasions when snow cannot be stored on the site, we have adequate capacity to remove the snow to a remote location. So we don't really, frankly, see snow removal as an issue for the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency of Simsbury, since it has no impact either on your upland review area or the wetlands further away. However, people are interested in that for reasons that they've expressed, and we wanted to respond in a suitable way. With respect to the use of brine as a tool in terms of the handling of snow and ice on a particular property. It was interesting that one of the commentators earlier this evening referred to publication by Minnesota, because I'm also going to refer to a Minnesota publication which indicates that if you do use brine as a pre-treatment prior to a snow event, what you manage to do is use about 20% of what you would use if you don't pre-treat. So you have the opportunity to reduce the use of one of the calcium chloride, sodium chloride, or one of those brines. If you pre-treat, you're actually reducing the use of that method of snow removal. According to this publication, which I'll also submit to the record, prepared by the APWA Winter Maintenance Subcommittee in Minnesota. They did a study there and concluded that the use of brine is not only appropriate, but much better than simply using sand. I will state for the record, if this commission is not comfortable with that, if you want to specify that we don't use that we don't pre-treat, that we only use sand, so be it. We think that that's not appropriate, nor does the people we consulted with think that's appropriate, but ultimately you would have, if you think that there is some measure of protection that you're going to afford by that, that would be your decision. I owe an apology to, I think it was Mr. Bade. He asked me a question at our last meeting, and when looking back on how I responded, I wasn't particularly happy with the way I responded. I thought I was a little abrupt, and I didn't mean to be. And so I apologize for that. But he did get me to think about thermal impacts. That was your question, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And I know you're all very familiar with the fact that the University of New Hampshire has conducted about 30 years of studies on stormwater management, that when you have a question about stormwater management, the first place you go is to the University of New Hampshire Stormwater Center, which is what I did. There seemed to be a concern that there would be a thermal impact to the second brook by the collection of the stormwater from our site, and ultimately, under certain circumstances, being discharged and finding its way down the slope through the woods to the second brook. I won't bore you by reading this entire article, but what it concludes is that the best system to provide treatment and to reduce elevated summer runoff temperatures is by way of infiltration and filtration, because it moderates the temperatures when the water passes through the underground chambers. Because, as I'm sure you've all heard in more than this presentation, the groundwater is at a much lower temperature than surface water, and so when you have water underground, it isn't exposed to the regime of temperature that surface water is. And so under this University of New Hampshire study, they conclude that LID, low intensity development, low impact development, is the best policy, and that they believe in this conclusion that the use of subterranean infiltration, filtration systems offers the best opportunity for successfully renovating stormwater and avoiding thermal impacts. And finally, and then I'll turn it over to Seamus. Commission seemed concerned that this underground system that we propose presented issues of discharge and potential impacts on the wetland down gradient from our discharge point. And again, I went to the New Hampshire Stormwater Study Group. I'm going to submit an article, Stormwater Low Impact Development, Conventional Structural and Manufactured Treatment Strategies for Parking Lot Runoff, certainly on point with all of the discussions that we've had. And Seamus is going to talk about this a little bit when he presents, but one of their performance evaluations indicate that several LID designs have removal efficiencies of 80 to 100%. I think you're going to hear testimony from Seamus that indicates that we're well within that that standard. And then it goes on to say that they believe that a dynamic separator followed by a large subsurface infiltration system made up of a series, in this case, of perforated pipes was indicated the highest water quality treatment that stormwater could receive as compared to bioswales, detention or retention ponds, or any surface method of disposing of stormwater. So the conclusion that I reached, not a scientist by any stretch of the imagination, is that the subsurface structures that Seamus has described to you is actually really what stormwater experts recommend for low impact development and for the highest possible renovation of stormwater before it's discharged to other bodies of water. I just have a couple more comments that we received that I'm going to ask people with a great deal more expertise than me to speak to. Madam Chairman, I think I addressed all of yours already. I don't know who the other notes came from. The first item was snow removal. We've spoken about that to some extent. Seamus will go over his plans and once again reaffirm that we have an adequate plan for snow removal and snow storage that has no impact on the wetlands or the upland review area. We have provided you with a review by Mr. Davison with respect to species of special concern. I know there's a gentleman who spoke. That's already in your records. And because we have no activity in the wetland area at all, and no impact based on our expert testimony, we don't think that a further study of that wetland, the brook area, would provide any further information. The next one was a Native American archaeology study. With all due respect, that's just not part of the purview of the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency. A question as to how the building is kept clean and speculation as to what might be used to clean it. Again, that's not anywhere in the upland review area. It's certainly not anywhere near the wetland boundary, and frankly not within the purview of your jurisdiction, but the material is made so that it stays clean and is easy to clean, not with chemicals, so that we don't view that as an issue. Stormwater filtration, Seamus will discuss. Parking lot basins, Seamus, and stormwater discharge flows is also an item that he'll discuss. I did want to ask, before Seamus takes over, to Mr. Sipperly, who is one of the wetland experts that we consulted. He offered testimony at your last public hearing. I just want him to speak to this question of whether or not it would be appropriate to insist on further study of the wetland area with respect to, I assume, obligate species. And I will state for the record, we have no wetlands on our site. We have no vernal pools on our site. We have no vernal pools identified anywhere proximate to our site. So Jim, if you would.
Yeah, sure. For the record, my name is James Sipperly. I'm a certified soil scientist and also a Connecticut wetland scientist. And I feel compelled to tell you again on the record that for 26 years, I've been working for the city of Middletown as the environmental planner there, staffed the Wetland Commission. Prior to that, I was in Cheshire, Connecticut for 8 years. And I'm also the wetland agent part-time for the town of Portland. And I sit on my Wetland Commission in Bosworth, Connecticut, where I reside. Eric Davidson is very knowledgeable and very experienced, and he put together a nice report based on what he expects to find along that stream corridor from the work that he did across the street. Is it Powder Forest or Powder Frost, something like that? And he, put that information on the record. I testified that, there's several functions that occur along the stream corridor. And it's a high quality wetland, has a lot of values and functions, and those functions and values are going to continue to operate and function. To do a detailed study, if something shows up, well, that's fine, but whatever species does show up, it's not going to be impacted because there's nothing that's going to be occurring in that stream corridor. So that is one of the things that I wanted to talk about. There's a saying in the environmental industry, the solution to pollution is dilution, and it's quite true. And I want to talk a little bit about the brine issue again, this fact sheet that you have in your record. So anti-icing involves placing the layer of the calcium chloride brine on the pavement prior to the storm. And as you heard the attorney say that's going to require like 20% or a quarter less material on the parking lot and in the drainage system. If you were not going to use that kind of anti-icing, when you de-ice, that's when you put down stuff and salt after the storm. That's not good. So that best management practice is what we are applying, and there's actually a class offered by the state of Connecticut, I think it's UConn, for municipal and parking lot managers about snow application, de-icing application. It's a whole program. So, and I just want to say that, you've heard a lot of perceived fears from the residents. Some of them are general statements in general, and you guys, as a commission members, have specific factors of decision to look at in your regulations. I urge you to limit your considerations to those factors moving forward in making a decision. And I want to say one more thing about the video. I guess there's a video about the floodplain. So the floodplain along Second Brook is doing its job. When it rains a lot, sure, it swells up and the water is held and then it is released slowly into the Farmington River. But there's also a problem with the 3 pipes that are underneath the bike path. They've never been maintained. When I was down there looking at them, there was detritus, leaves, sticks, down branches that were blocking that flow. So someone, I'm not sure who's responsible or who owns that property, but that should be maintained as a matter of course, so that floodplain along Second Brook continues to function.
Good evening. Again, Seamus Moran. So there's just 3 comments that I will address here. I think everybody else did a great job of addressing everything else. The first comment was stormwater filtration. I said a number of 50% of petroleum hydrocarbons at the last meeting off the cuff. I hate when I do that. I shouldn't do that. So the number is actually much higher for our stormwater system. So from our Bible, UNH Stormwater Center, our treatment train, first it goes from all of the stormwater is captured in our deep sump catch basins, which then go to our subsurface infiltration system. Deep sump catch basins have a removal efficiencies of 9% for the TSS, suspended solids, and 14% of TPH, to petroleum hydrocarbons. That's before it gets into the subsurface system. The subsurface system then removes 83% of suspended solids and 91% of petroleum hydrocarbons. So the subsurface system, between our catch basins with our deep sumps and our subsurface storm tech system, it removes about 95% or so of the petroleum hydrocarbons from the parking lot and just about 90% of the suspended solids. So those are the numbers from our removal efficiencies from University of New Hampshire Stormwater Center. With regard to the second question was with regard to maintenance and who will oversee that, and will the town get a copy of that? So there will be a site super who oversees the site and will be responsible for that. That's part of the maintenance plan. And that log will be sent to the town. And it's also in our best interest to maintain and watch that, because if it's an ounce of something is a pound of cure, an ounce of prevention is a pound of cure. So as long as you maintain and you catch it early on, you don't end up with an issue down the road. So it's in our best interest to maintain our stormwater management system, as well as our subsurface system is designed to treat a 100-year storm event. So that the stormwater that's coming through into those chambers, the chambers are vastly oversized, or at least the isolator row is oversized for the sediment buildup in there. So the chamber length, there will be excessive length for sediment to build up. So when it gets to 3 inches deep, that's when it has to be cleaned out. ADS recommends every 7 to 10 years that it should be cleaned out. With the length of our system and the sediment buildup, it would likely be even more than that. However, we will be checking it. It's required twice the first year and once every year thereafter to maintain and to insert a stadia rod into the inspection port to measure the depth of that sediment. So that will be part of the maintenance plan, and it's in our best interest to do so. Last question was concentrating the flows on the north side. Let's see if I can pull this up here. Oh, so anyway, we do have the one discharge point for the subsurface system, and previously we were connecting the bioretention basin as well to that same discharge location. I heard the comments, so now the subsurface system will discharge in that one location north of the building. I'm sorry, along the northern property line, essentially in the middle of the property. And the bioretention basin outlet control structure will discharge on the opposite side in the northeast corner. So 2 separate discharge points. And those numbers, actually, they're very low numbers. So for the 25-year storm event, the central discharge point is only discharging 1.32 CFS. And the discharge point for the basin is only 0.52 CFS. So it's very small peak rates that we're discharging, and the pipe slope at the discharge is very shallow. It's only 0.5%. So between the 0.5% slope of the pipe with the riprap apron and the very low flows, our apron is oversized and our discharge is very low, as well as a riprap apron level spreader. So hopefully that addresses that concern. And lastly, after it discharges to that apron, we still have another, it's not to the wetland, it's to our property line essentially, which we have another 55 feet of sheet flow overland before it reaches the wetland. So after it discharges, after it leaves our pipe, after it settles into our basin, it'll sheet flow overland another 55 feet. And the reason those numbers are low is because our subsurface system is designed to infiltrate through the 2-year storm event. So there won't be any discharge from our subsurface system through the 2-year storm event. So that's how the system has been designed. And lastly, the infiltration rate, which we went around on a few times with the town engineer. We've settled on a 0.1 inches per hour infiltration rate. So it's a very low infiltration rate for our subsurface system and our bioretention basin. And that's based on the geotechnical report. That's based on our geotechnical findings. So all of it coupled together with a low infiltration rate, with a wide base, with an infiltration of the 2-inch storm event, with a subsurface system that's good for thermal properties, I think we have a really positive stormwater management design here for our development. I believe that's it. Stormwater? Snow. George, I'm not sure if share your top secret password. For the record. Perfect. Let's see if I can find the plan. It's probably this plan. Okay, excellent. So this plan, as we pointed out, we added the snow storage areas to the plan. In our last meeting, I mentioned that these 5 spaces would be blocked off in case of a snow event. So that way, if a truck is plowing, they can come in this way and deposit the snow in this location here, continue on their way, deposit snow in this location here.
Can you use the landscape part to show this?
I'll go to that one in a second if that's okay. And then on top of that, and then the last one is after they make this loop, the deposit of snow will be in this corner here. So we have 83 required parking spaces, where we have 95 shown. We're showing the use of 7 of these spaces, so we still exceed the minimum required when we block those parking spaces off. And then the snow storage calculation, that's a product of the impervious area of the entire parking lot and the areas that we have shown here. And what it shows is for essentially the 12-inch storm event, if you were to flatten it out, it would be about 30 inches tall. We know that a snowplow doesn't go in and flatten the snow out. They end up being a mound of snow. We're not pretending that the snowplow is going to come in and lay a flat 30-inch bed of snow. But we're just saying in this area, if you were to use this area here, and this area here for snow storage, and it were to be a flat plateau, it would be 30 inches tall for a 12-inch storm event. Where in all likelihood, they will probably just pile it up so it's 8 feet tall in a much shorter, smaller area. But these areas are designated for the snow storage. I believe there's a question about the landscaping plan. So in the landscaping plan, the rain garden, this is the reason for the locations is all the snow in this area that melts will end up getting into will either infiltrate or will be collected through the outlet control structure and then discharge. So there will not be any direct discharge. It's all in the 100-foot, outside the 100-foot upland review area, and there will be no direct discharge to the wetland, of course, from the snow storage areas.
As a commission at our last meeting, there were several other suggestions made. I just want to let you know that the plans that have been submitted have incorporated a number of those so that you're aware of them. We've provided Mr. McGregor with an updated set of plans in order for him to confirm what I'm representing to you. I indicated that we had eliminated the eastern detention area. This is the pathway that I talked about, leading from the sidewalk for residents to come here and utilize this lawn area. We're showing a couple of picnic tables there for the use of the tenants. And again, all of the greenery, foliage that exists along the Heritage Trail will remain. That won't be disturbed under this scenario. We've added a 36-inch high fence along this entire stretch of area out of response to concerns that the headlights from cars pulling into these spaces during darkness would shine headlights into the wetland area that's back about 50 feet back from that. So there would be a 3-foot fence on top of the retaining wall. The retaining wall, if you'll remember, is at grade here. And so the fence will sit on top of that, shielding any headlight intrusion to the north. So that's been added. I already indicated the dumpster is now bear resistant. We have substituted curbing. There was a concern about curbing on the northern boundary since the wetlands is further to the north, and so now the plan shows a Cape Cod curb, as was suggested by a commissioner. We've already indicated the snow storage. The fire marshal, or chief, marshal. The fire marshal asked that we create an emergency egress from the bike trail through the property, and so we've added pavers, porous pavers, as a landing area here. Last night, some people misconstrued that as a fire apparatus opportunity to get on the Heritage Trail. That's really not what that is. We were simply asked to provide an opportunity for egress from the trail, which we've done. We've talked about and I feel badly, Ms. McDonald did all those calculations and unfortunately misunderstood the stormwater management plan, but we've now explained the methodology of the stormwater management plan. As Seamus indicated, not only are we handling our own drainage on our site, but we're also intercepting the water that is moving to the north, putting it into a drainage system to capture it and keep it from flowing across the parking lot property. Added to the plan, although it really doesn't, well, maybe it does if you're concerned about noise or the HVAC units have been located at the very southeast corner of the building. That's about as far away from your upland review area as we can get. And they'll all be situated in this area to service the building. There were some changes to the utility plan in order to respond to the changes to the stormwater management plan. But again, we have public sewer, public water available and confirmed by the appropriate utility companies as part of our application procedure. And I think that's all of the suggestions that we received from this commission, unless I've missed one.
I did have one from the conservation. I did have one from conservation about the end wall and the light shining out.
We asked our lighting consultant to tell us whether there would be light emanating from the entryway to the building. I don't know if I have well, you can't really see it. That's a view from the street. I don't think I have it in the slide, but he did a typical light photometric study, as I'm sure you've seen, and it indicates that there's no light spillage that will escape our property, and all of the lights are downward directed to really light that entryway.
No, I understand that for the parking lot lights, but this is a 4-story
Right.
building that's lit. I mean, we know houses that have lights on inside, you can still see the light. I mean, it's still visible, it's still shining
I
out.
certainly would not say it's going to be invisible. It won't be. But
No, but that's, I mean,
I don't know what I can't. I don't know what to say about that. It's the lighted entrance for 80 apartment units. It has to be
No, I was wondering-
safe and it has to be accessible.
No, it wasn't a concern about not having lights there, it was having a solid wall rather than a
It's not
transparent wall.
under the design of this building. That's not possible
Why would that be?
because that entryway is open to the air. Air passes through the metal permeable screen that's used to separate it from the outside. It is not an interior space, it's an exterior space.
Do you have a picture of that?
I do.
At nighttime conditions?
I'm sorry?
You have similar building to this. Do you have a picture of what it would look like at nighttime, lit up?
No. I do not have a nighttime picture. That's all of our materials for this evening, unless the commission has questions or other suggestions.
I do have a few questions. The pre-treatment of the driveway, who will be doing that? Will that be the parking? Will that be the site super, or who will be doing the pre-treatment, the brine treatment of the parking lot?
The contractor that's hired to manage the snow would be responsible for that.
And will they be taking the classes, the courses, the pre-treatment courses?
My understanding is that they do get trained in the application of brine, which is what it is. It's a brine solution.
I know, it was just brought up, and I was just wondering what that
Right.
is. And will the site super be responsible for applying any of the calcium chloride in special places along the sidewalks and things like that?
No,
So there will be no treatment along the sidewalks?
I didn't say that. I said the
I
site
was
super
wondering.
won't be responsible.
The super, yeah, the super will.
He would not.
He
The
wouldn't.
contractor who is retained to manage the snow on the site would be responsible for sidewalks as well.
All right.
I just have one other question. I'm sorry to belabor the snow removal point. You had said there were spaces that would be cleared, parking spaces with cars in it that would be cleared. So I have two questions. One is, how would that be accomplished other than, people are gonna park there? And if there are cars parked there, then what?
So at the time that a storm is anticipated, so that you know that the contractor is going to come to apply the pre-ice treatment, there would be restrictive cones so that cars would not park in this area. That's one of the snow areas. They would be these two spaces would be treated the same way. Spaces over here are not spaces that we currently anticipate building. Those are, and this is probably antithetical to this commission, the zoning commission feels that we don't have nearly enough parking. They want more pavement and more parking.
Well, those are the regs, but.
I'm sorry?
Well, I don't want to get into zoning. I know there are certain zoning regs that dictate that. My question more is just to how that'll be done, but I guess people will just cooperate and not park their cars there. And then if there's cones, then they'll have to be removed to plow the snow. Okay, well, all right.
But I am curious.
I hope it is that simple.
Following up, I mean, if there are 90, if there are 80 units and even 80 cars, and the snow is happening overnight when the cars are parked, how do you clear it? I mean, where are the people going to park while the lot, if the cars are already there and the snowstorm comes, where are I guess that's what I was thinking what you were saying.
Yes. Well,
So in the
no, I mean, it's okay.
Madam Chair.
Isn't.
We don't, we've done the public comment. Sorry.
In the management of apartment complexes, which I am familiar with, in a typical apartment complex like this, every tenant has given contact information to the person in charge of the complex, either by text or by email or by voicemail, and they're advised that their cars need to be moved by a certain time in order for the snow clearing to occur. And it's a system that works. I have clients in various towns. We have a client who owns the tannery in Glastonbury. It's 250 units with 175 outdoor spaces. The snow gets cleared. People cooperate and understand how it works.
Just curious.
It works.
I do have a question about, there's an awful lot of program on this site. I mean, there can't be much more on this site than there is. I know
I just wanted to touch on the snow just one more second. At my my prior place of employment, the day before a snowstorm, they would put the cones out in the spaces that we couldn't park. It only took one time for me to realize I can't park there during a snowstorm, so I wouldn't park there the second time. So it's, once you live there and you see where the snow is piled, and it's kind of a responsibility of the tenants as well.
No, I used to live in Chicago. I know about that. But I do have a question about the prudent and feasible. It is an extremely tight site with an awful lot of program in it. And I think that's one of the concerns the public has about this particular site. It is just so much. I don't think anyone would have had as much of a problem had it been smaller. Can you address a prudent and feasible alternative of having a smaller building with fewer parking spots? From a wetlands point of view, and drainage.
It is. No, I don't want. Are you done?
No, but please let the applicant speak.
We have considered that. It's possible for us to reduce the number of units in this building. I think, however, from a wetlands standpoint, based on the comments that the public made at the zoning meeting last night and that the zoning commission made, if we eliminated a number of units, we would not eliminate, they would not want us to eliminate parking spaces. If it were up to us and we were eliminating units, we would also eliminate parking spaces. And we could do those with the parking spaces that are in the upland review area. For example, if we reduce this development by one bay, which would be 8 units. So we pulled the building back by one set of units. That represents 8 units. That would allow us to eliminate 8 parking spaces under our theory of parking. And we could do that in the area where we're within the upland review area. We could identify the most sensitive part of that and eliminate those. And I want to say that we're not unwilling to do that, but that represents 2 things. It represents a reduction in the number of affordable units because
Why would that be?
the obligation under 830G is that 30% of the units are affordable. So instead of having 24 affordable units, we would have 21, 22, if you round up, which DOH usually does. We've considered that, we've looked at that option, I think it's a good idea to be frank. I try to be straightforward with commissions when I do this kind of work. If we're going to get denied, then we might as well get denied for 80 units because we think we meet all the standards under 830G. I will tell you that my clients would rather have an approval and not an appeal to the court, which takes a year or 18 months and costs a lot of money. We meet all the standards of 830G. If the zoning commission can concoct, frankly, a public health and safety reason to deny us, then so be it, because that's what the statute requires. We certainly didn't feel like this commission was heading towards an approval at our last meeting. Certainly were a lot, at least from our standpoint, less than positive comments. We thought we got a lot of great suggestions, which we've incorporated. But again, if we were willing to show a plan that had 72 units and fewer parking spaces, again, I would want to feel that had a reasonable chance of securing a permit rather than going through that exercise, providing all of the engineering that's required to do that, and then have this commission deny the permit anyway. That's a waste of your time and our time. And I'm going to also say one of the comments that one of the public made tonight isn't that far off. The Connecticut legislature took this control away from municipalities. I didn't do that. My client didn't do that. The legislature did that. And they did it because not just Simsbury, but practically every town in the state doesn't provide affordable housing. And the people in the legislature got sick of that. And they feel that everybody says they could live in another town. They could go somewhere else. And so they imposed this 830G. And I will tell you that, my client would be just as happy to build market rate units, but also has gone to an extraordinary measure to create a product. And it is a product. It's not a building that was just designed for this site. We readily admit that. But it's the way to produce really first-class housing at a price that's affordable. My daughter, who's a lawyer in our law firm, is in Glastonbury doing a presentation just like this tonight. And when she left, actually I left before she did, we're certain that it's going to get denied, certain. And it's because of the same resistance that communities have to affordable housing. And it's natural, and I get it, and I understand it. But the statute is clear as to what our responsibility is, and your wetlands regulation is clear. We would rather cooperate with you and reach an agreement and get a permit from you than end up not getting one. So that's our position. If this commission feels that a reduction to 72 units and an elimination of some of the parking in the upland review area, along with all of the other refinements that we've made to the plan, all of those would stay in place, is satisfactory to you, then I would recommend to my client that they do that.
Yeah, I don't think that the sentiment here was that the town is against the affordable housing. It's the question of, is it suitable for this particular site? I mean, this is just an extremely small site for an extremely
And that
large program.
And frankly, that decision has been taken away from you.
It has, but I think, yeah, well, this is not, I don't think it's the opinion of anyone on this wetland commission that we are against affordable housing. So I don't, but it is our responsibility to find good sites for these programs. So,
I had one further question. Is there any way we can relocate the dumpster area out of the upland review area? I appreciate that it's a bear-resistant receptacle. However, people aren't perfect and trash doesn't always make it in the dumpster. It being in the upland review area and that close to the edge of the property, I promise bears will abscond with trash and it will end up in the wetlands in the upland review area. I know that's off the property, but it's in the upland review area. Is there any place we can move that? Even if it's across the parking lot, I'd rather the trash get dragged across the parking lot than into the woods.
And what I would say to that is that if you made that a condition of approval, we would move it.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
do we have any more questions from the commissioners this evening?
Yes, I have a question. Like Ms. McDonald, I initially thought that the property that's not being developed was part of it, and I read it again, and it's not. It's from the south that's going in. I guess my question would be, is there any extra capacity for the stormwater management system? Just thinking ahead, I mean, you can't predict the future, but homeowners south of that might say, well, you know what, I'm going to put up a big building myself and pave all that nice pervious soil, and now you have 3 big parking lots instead of just 1 big parking lot.
So the answer is yes. There's room built into the system, so it doesn't overtop. There's, for example, in the subsurface system, I can tell you what the water surface elevations are for the 100-year storm. This is for the 100. This is a 9-inch storm event in 24 hours. So for example, area A1 has a top of chamber elevation of 89.5. For the 100-year storm event, it's 89.01. So there's 6 inches of freeboard between the top of the chamber, and then there's 9 inches of stone above that. For A2, the top of the chamber is 91.3. We're at 89.9. So again, 5 inches of freeboard still left in the chambers, and then 9 inches of stone. So there's the way it works out. There's room in the chambers, and there's room in the stone above the chambers. And then in the basin, the bioretention basin, there's a minimum of 12 inches of freeboard. I think it's actually 13 inches of freeboard between the top of the basin and the water surface elevation at the 100-year storm event. Does that answer the question?
I guess, yeah.
So I have a follow-on question to that. How many 100-year rainstorms have we had in the last 10 or 20 years? Do you have I was trying to find that. Do you have any idea?
It's a 9-inch storm event that's based on the math, it's supposed to be about a 1% storm, but you're probably gonna see 2 in your lifetime. That's probably that's what they say.
Well, except that we've had across the country, we've had lots of really huge rainstorms. So I know what a 100-year one was, 10 years ago. I was just wondering.
Yeah, so it's different in every state, in every region.
Sure.
You have to add it. So in Florida, I think it was like an 18-inch storm event is a 100-year storm event. Where in Connecticut, in this exact region, it fluctuates by hundredths or tenths or whatever it is based on the town. But that's just that was updated in 2014 after a series of hurricanes. So that's actually higher than it was prior to 2014. So that's what they've come up with as a number. I don't know, to answer your question, I don't know if there have been 9-inch storm events, more than one in the last 100 years or more than 2. I don't know what that number is.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions? I know we've been given a lot to think about, but.
Well, actually,
No,
I do have a question about the main discharge from the underground system. I'm not sure who said it, but they said, it exits the system and then it goes down 50 feet to the stream, to Second Brook.
That's correct. To the wetland.
To the
edge of the wetland.
To the edge of the wetland. How big is that? The riprap and all that discharge? I'm looking at the drawing. I can't really, it's this small. There's no scale or anything.
I don't think I printed that out in my little quick brochure here, but there's a sizing calculation. It's based on the flow that gets there and the velocity of the water, how long and how wide it has to be. And the stone that's there is longer and wider than the calculation shows. It fits better that way and also spreads it out a little bit more. But the minimum, I don't have the print out. Oh, actually, never mind. I lied. I do. I'm sorry. 1 second.
Okay.
So it's a minimum of 4 feet wide at the top, 8 feet wide at the end, and 6 feet long.
Okay. And that's right on your property line, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So any discharge is really not on your property?
It is. It's entirely on our property. The whole apron is on our property.
Correct, but then the water goes into the.
Correct. It dissipates and it sheet flows overland from a static level in the riprap apron overland.
And what was the velocity for like one of these big storm events?
So for the velocity at the 25-year storm event is what you're designed for. It's 3.4 feet per second is the velocity coming out of the pipe with a 1.32 CFS discharge.
Yeah, CFS is cubic feet per second?
Yes, correct. Sorry.
What was the cubic feet? I was making notes. Again, I'm sorry.
3.4 feet per second, 1.32 cubic feet per second. So the velocity is in feet per second, and the peak rate is in CFS.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
All right, well, we've been given a lot to think about tonight. Thank you very much for the information you provided and some of the changes you've made to the plans. I personally would like to see the planting plan and some of the other things that have been submitted.
Yeah, Madam Chair, let me just to be clear on that. So yeah, the applicant has submitted those revisions to both plan set, stormwater management plan, and landscaping plan. And so those arrived, I guess this morning or last night, now that I think about it. So that will, we'll get that out to you tomorrow, and we'll get all that posted as well. And we'll also take our time as staff to review it.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah.
Again, to the stormwater, on the northeast corner, I guess it's labeled FES1. What would be it looks like it's coming from it might be old, but it's coming from the
basin?
The basin that's been eliminated. Is that still there, or that's
No,
gone?
so the basin on the east is not there. The basin's on the west.
Correct.
That pipe is wrapped around the building, south end of the building, and discharges in the northeast corner.
Okay, and when would that discharge?
When would that discharge?
At what point, yes, at what stage was that?
So that number.
That's like
is-
that's an overflow, I would imagine?
No, so we have, because it's a surface basin that is infiltrating up to the 1-year storm event, and then there's a 4-inch orifice, but the discharge of the 25-year storm event at that location is only 0.52 CFS.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, since you're going to review plans and may have more questions, I would ask you not to close the public hearing so that we can add information or respond to questions.
That's what I'm hoping to do this evening. So I would entertain a motion to keep the public hearing open.
Sure,
So moved.
I'll make the
No,
motion
I-
that the Inland Waterways Agency continue the public hearing on application CC 22-29, an application of Vessel Holdings for a wetland permit, 466 Hot Meadow Street, to its regular meeting on April 4th, 2023 at the Town of Simsbury Library, which is located at 725 Hot Meadow Street, Simsbury. The meeting time at 7:30.
Second?
Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.